Hey everybody, it's Wednesday, September 19th, and still no TTMs. It's only been maybe about 10 days, so I'm not too worried about it since I started getting back into things. But I want to thank everybody for checking out the channel. I know Zane Savage, thanks for mentioning me, and got a lot of new subs and a lot of comments, so that's really cool. Last video I mentioned talking about Scott Bakula, and so I thought I'd just take a moment. My first TTM from Scott Bakula was a pre-printed postcard, and I thought it was pretty cool. Of course, back then I wasn't too keen on what was pre-printed and pre-signed and auto pen and stuff like that, so I thought it was real for the longest time. Turns out it's a printed photo, and I got that one in 1996. Now, as I may have explained in an earlier video, just a little bit, but not entirely, I actually worked in Los Angeles with, I actually worked at Warner Brothers, and I did all the websites for Babylon 5, Drew Carey, Rosie O'Donnell, Extra TV, some movie sites, and mostly TV sites, Drew Carey, Friends, ER, stuff like that. It was a bunch of us, and it was a great time, and I wouldn't trade the experience for anything. Well, during that time, as part of the WBTV publicity, there was a new show coming up, and it was actually called Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Now, there's been a recent movie with that same title, but there was Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and it starred Scott Bakula and Maria Bello. Well, one of the things that I did was I actually was the person who did the interviews on America Online in the chat rooms with the celebrities. Now, sometimes, like with the Olsen twins, for example, we'd have them on the phone and they're in New York or something like that, and we actually just screen questions and type for the celebrities. So I was dual boxing before there was actually a term for dual boxing. Those gamers know what that is. Basically two computers at the same time, sometimes three, but mostly just two. And I would ask questions on one computer and then type for the celebrities on the other. And sometimes the celebrities came in, sometimes they were just over the phone. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Smith was just starting, and they wanted us to come to the set, but they didn't actually have a good way to hook up the computer up at the time, because it was all modems through the phone line. You know what that? Yeah, you know what that is. So we actually sent two people out to the set to help get the modem and things set up for them. Unfortunately, since I was the main tech person and the person hosting the chat, I had to stay behind in the office. Now, during this online chat with Scott Bakula and Maria Bello, there's some idle time as we're screening through questions, and somehow I told Scott and Maria that since I moved from Ames, Iowa to Los Angeles, I had eaten at the same place for 6 months, and that was the restaurant directly below our office, which was a Panda Express. It was right next to Bob's Big Boy. I don't know why I never went to Bob's Big Boy in Burbank, but I always went to Panda Express. And so this just kept coming up, and throughout the chat, he'd make little comments about, Panda Express this, and, just little comments, making the joke. Well, I asked for an autograph. Asked the people that went to interview them to see if they can get me an autograph. And when I got it back, the inscription was wrong on Scott Bakula's, but I just want to show you. I don't know if it'll pick up. Here's the picture that I got of Scott Bakula and Maria Bello. Maria Bello says, Troy, all the best, Maria Bello. Now, Scott Bakula's, I don't know, it doesn't show up very well, and it's not going to go in. But Scott Bakula says, to Tony. Tony was the name of the person who went to the set to interview them, and Scott obviously got that a little mixed up. But it says, to Tony, no more orange chicken. And so I thought that was pretty cool. So it's it's not a TTM, it's more of a in-person / thanks, probably. But that's one of my favorite stories and favorite autograph. Even if it's inscribed wrong, to Tony, no more orange chicken, Scott Bakula. So that makes up for the pre-printed one. Now, along with doing the websites for ER and stuff like that, we also had areas for a show called Seventh Heaven. And I was a fan of the show pretty much from the get-go. And so it was great working behind the scenes on the website and on the AOL site. So I got to know one of the studio teachers that was on the show. And somehow, some other, I also interviewed the cast. It was called this WB press event. And they had everybody. They had everybody from Buffy, which I didn't get anybody's autographs. I still kind of hit myself up about that. Dawson's Creek, yeah, it was my one time to get Joshua Jackson's autograph, and that'll never happen again. And, of course, the people from Seventh Heaven. And so that's where I first met David Gallagher. Actually, it wasn't the very first time I met David Gallagher. There were a few other times. And I'll tell you about one of my other jobs in another video. It gets kind of crazy. But I interviewed David Gallagher, and later I was actually able to get on the show as an extra and get my Screen Actors Guild card. And as part of that, I asked David for an autograph one time just so I could have it in my collection. And so, again, it's another... I think I'm going to do 3 to put on the wall because that's another in-person, but I wanted to put this one up too. So this is David Gallagher. You may have seen him recently in the film Super 8. He played the drugged out guy in the car, if you remember that movie. It was recently. I didn't even recognize him, and I knew the kid. But it says, to Troy, your friend, David Gallagher, right there. And so that was another in-person. I'm trying to put up a few more today just because I want to get the wall looking okay. But let's go to a real TTM. I'm going to reach over here. And this one was a surprise because I knew he was signing. But what I did was actually I went to the library and got a book on the Muppets. And I didn't want the usual picture that he had signed. And so I scanned this photo from a book, put it together, printed it out, sent it out, and he actually sent it back signed, and then the actual other photo that he usually signs back signed. And so this one's pretty cool. I really like this one because it's a photo that, as far as I know, nobody else has, unless they did the same thing I did. But here you go. To Troy, Frank Oz, voice of Yoda, Fozzie Bear. So Frank Oz. So I'm going to put these up on the wall. So we got Frank Oz, David Gallagher, and Scott Bakula. A little bit of a story on all those. And I'll tell you a little bit more about what I did in LA if anybody's interested. Or if you just want me to ramble on about the autographs, I can do that too. But until the TTMs start coming in, I'm going to be filling up that wall, hopefully, and get the set going. And hopefully you'll find these interesting. Now, if you want to see close-ups of any of these, you could just go to my website. That's ttmftw.com, ttmftw.com. I'm putting up scans. Some of the scans are about 5 or even 10 years old, so I'm updating those as I go along, but hopefully you'll like those, and if you like that, like this video too. As Chris Perillo would say, like this video. So thanks again for watching, and I'm going to go put these up on the wall, and we'll talk to you next time. Hopefully I'll start getting some TTMs in, huh? So, all right, let's go put these on the wall. Feel a little like Mr. Rogers here. Let's feed the fish. So I'm gonna put up here. Oh, let's put Frank Oz over here. Let's put David Gallagher. Let's just put him up here. And we'll put Scott Bakula right over